Morning, Market Chameleons. How's everyone doing this morning? Dima, how you doing?
Good morning, Will. How are you?
Great, buddy. How's everything going?
Pretty good. Pretty good. I was just checking out some movers from yesterday. I thought that were worth mentioning.
Cool.
But before we do that,
let's get started with the disclaimer.
Yep. Good morning, everyone. Before we get started, keep in mind, Will and I, Market Chameleon, we're not registered investment advisors. We're not broker dealers. We're not telling you what to do. We're just sharing ideas. If you need professional help, contact your broker. That's what they're there for. They should be able to help answer your questions, provide you with guidance. There's the disclaimer. And with that, let's get going. I'm going to share my screen real quick. I think what we'll do is take a look what's moving into pre-market hours, just like we usually start out. There's another report which actually is very similar to this, and I don't think I've ever covered it. It's looking at intraday market movers. It's very similar to this. You could get an analysis, what's going on during the market hours, what's moving up, what's moving down, look at the historical price behavior. So I'll do an example of that as well. And I think it's worth looking at yesterday. We had, after the election, we kind of had an initial view from where in sector ETFs, where people are putting money towards and where people are pulling money out of. So let's take a look at that as well. I looked at it and kind of interesting. Some of them were surprising. So we'll do that after going over, just the usual pre-market report. If you're joining us for the first time, these are stocks. Right now we're looking at stocks that are moving into pre-market hours prior to the market open. We got biggest, most active stocks, biggest percentage gainers, biggest percentage decliners. I'm going to first take this list and filter it by market cap. And let's take a look at stocks with a market cap of $20 billion or higher. So I'm using this filter here. Now we filtered it out. So we see here right now, 96 stocks made the percentage gainers list. 7 stocks are on our percentage decliners list. So at least from the market perspective, looks like more bullish than bearish at the open. Up top, I see Qualcomm that had earnings up almost 14%, 13.6% in the morning. MTCH, another one, had earnings. General Motors up 6% on 1.1 million shares. So that's here. I just clicked on it. Let's take a look at General Motors and see what's going on here. So yesterday, that stock closed at $35.24. It's trading into pre-market hours, $37.44. That's up 6.2% at the open. Here's the range, $35.93, $37.81. That's in the pre-market hours. We see here that right now, where it's trading at pre-market hours, close to its 52-week high, $38.96. And of course, this is what the chart looks like in the pre-market hours. It had earnings. I'll let you guys read the earnings reports. They're down here, and you can decide good, bad. I'll let you interpret it. But let's take a look at how today's move compares to historical earnings move and what tended to happen after General Motors released earnings. So here's the earnings patterns here. And these are the last 12 quarter earnings and how General Motors performed. So these are the dates over here. This is how it tended to perform going into earnings. This is the day of the earnings, and then this is how it performed following the earnings report. So we see here opening gap here on average, 75% of the time the opening gap was higher, 25% of the time it opened lower for an average gain of 1.7%. The average of these 12 moves up or down, so this is the magnitude of the move, is up or down 3.2% with a high move of 8.2%, which was, let me see if I could find right here, 8.2% on May 6th. So you could see here today up 6.2%, definitely higher than that average move. Looks like almost double the average move of 3.2%. This is how it tended to behave after the opening bell. So from the open, we use the open as the benchmark. From the open to the high of the day, the average move was 2.1%. From the open to the low of the day, the average move was down 2.4%. So a little bit skewed towards the lower side, I would say. From the open to the close, it looks like 67% of the time it drifted higher, 33% of the time it closed lower, and on average, break even. And we see here, following the earnings, coming out of earnings next day, 2 days later, even up to 2 weeks later, it tended to be pretty weak. So take a look at the report today. Whatever they say, they might be saying something new, something more positive. Always important to read those reports, see what the management is saying. Obviously, besides the earnings release and their numbers, they're probably going to give you some guidance about what they see going forward. Let me close this on General Motors. If you don't have any questions on a pre-market report, Will, I'll take you to a different report that I wanted to cover before we get to like what's coming up with earnings.
Sounds good, buddy.
Okay. Let's take a look at the ETFs. And I just wanted to take a look at this because, let's see where people started to push money after what they perceive the elections might be. And I'm going to, right now, the first thing I want to do is just kind of filter out the leveraged ETF. So I'm going to just filter by non-leveraged. And what that means is I'm taking out all those reverse, double reverse, triple reverse, or double, triple, bullish ones. These are just non-leveraged ETFs. And let's take a look at by percentage change. Let's take a look at the gainers first. And I'm going to look for ones that have more volume. So here are 6 million shares, KWEB, that traded 2.8 times its average daily volume. And that's the China ETF. So I guess there maybe makes sense if you're thinking Biden is the winner and he's going to be less aggressive with China. So that kind of makes sense if you're thinking that Biden will be the winner. Here I see, let's take a look here. Here's 12 million shares. That's the biotech. So that's a little bit, that's up 6.2% yesterday. There's another one, a China one, 900,000. That traded 5.1 times its average daily volume. So a couple of China ETFs here on large volume. Yesterday, biotech, I see a couple healthcare. Here's global internet giants. Here's 1.5 million shares, cloud computing. So those are some of the big winners yesterday. Some of those like kind of sectors that are doing well. Let's take a look at the losers.
These Chinese ETFs are trading at all-time highs, just an FYI.
Yeah, so they're doing pretty well. Maybe then the assumption is going forward, maybe that there will be a bigger benefit towards those Chinese companies. Let's take a look at losers. So these would be stocks we're seeing money flown out of. And here's a couple of them here that actually made these regional banks. So you could see here, here's 21 million shares of this ETF trading. That's 2.3 times its average daily volume, down 7.1%. VIX was down yesterday because the market was up, maybe more certainty. Let's take a look. A bunch of regional banks here. And I do remember during, when Biden was in office those 8 years, if we took a look at the charts of large banks versus small banks, the large banks did really well. Like they just, they got much bigger. They got that big stimulus package, but those regional banks, I don't think they did that well in those prior 8 years. So I could go back and look again, but I do recall like where there was like those big banks, their assets just kind of exploded. Instead of getting smaller, they got much bigger. JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, all those regional banks, they were struggling because of higher regulation. Metals and mining down 5.1%. That traded 1.6 times its average daily volume. Here's a cannabis. I think this one, not sure. It looks like they're bouncing back today. Not sure why cannabis would be selling off unless it was like kind of like they were buying a rumor, maybe selling on fact situation there. Let me see. Here's 1.7 million shares, infrastructure development. Not sure what the reasoning behind that one would be. Dividend growth stocks, perhaps they're looking at if we're going to tax dividends at a higher rate, capital gains at a higher rate, maybe those won't be as attractive. So couple things just to take a look at. These were the initial reactions, right? We still don't have the true results. We're not definitely sure who won it, but at least we kind of get a picture of what people were doing yesterday. Let's take a look at, if there's no questions, I'm going to move to the next report. Will.
Yeah, move.
This here, we usually start off with the pre-market report, but this here, market movers, this is very similar. And these are stocks that are, now we're closed, the market hasn't opened yet. So these are stocks that were big gainers yesterday. And it looks very similar to the pre-market report, but these are just, it doesn't matter, if the stock gapped up, gapped down, this is just looking at how it's performing for the day. I'm going to use that same filter I did before, over 20 billion shares. And we see here, BIIB, that was up huge yesterday, 44%. Uber, that was up 14.6%. We talked about these a little bit yesterday. And here we could kind of do the same thing. So here, BIIB, if you click on it, it'll let you know this is what it was doing yesterday. It was up 44%. We could take a look, you could take a look at the news, and this you could do intraday, right? So as stocks open up, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, you could go look at these reports. This is what the chart looks like, the VWAP here. We could take a look at the largest historical up moves and what the stock tended to do. So this is very similar to what we were doing in a pre-market report, but now we're doing it to the intraday movers. So here, this is in BIIB. We're looking at the 12 largest historical stock moves and seeing, well, what did it tend to do the next day? The question is, when this happens, is there usually a follow through? Is this an indication that we're going to continue going up? Of course, we don't know, but we're just going to take a look at history as guidance. As such a big move, is that an indicator like, hey, time to get bullish or not? So let's take a look what BIIB did before. Here's yesterday's move over here. These are the 12 largest moves in the last 3 years. This one, and you could see if there was any notes. So if there was a big market gain as well on the day, press releases. So the average of the 12 largest big moves, 12.5%. Yesterday just kind of way blew it out of the water, up 44%. This is what it tended to do coming out the next day. So the next day, it was down more often than not. It looked like, it was weaker 73% of the time, 27% of the time it was higher. Average loss 1.6%. If you're looking at going out further, it looked to me like it was pretty weak. So following those big gains, doesn't look historically that it tended to continue. But yesterday, obviously there's news, maybe some kind of special news you have to consider. You always have to consider that in your analysis. I'm going to close this up. Let's take a look at Uber. Same thing yesterday, up 14.6%. So here we go. Yesterday up 14.6%, closed at 40.99. So that's coming close to its 52-week high. And they had that favorable ruling in California, right? We talked about that, what was that proposition that they had to classify drivers as employees. I guess it didn't pass through. So it was up yesterday. But you could go in there, read the news, interpret it. Let's take a look at what happened historically following a big update in Uber. So these are the 12 largest moves to the upside in Uber. We see here yesterday, right, large large move, up 14.6%. The average of the largest 12 moves up 12.1%. So yesterday was close to that 14.6. We see the next day following, it looks like almost 64% of the time it was lower, 36% of the time it was higher. On average, the returns were like break even, and it looks following out, on average, it was able to produce some gains, even though up and down it's like 50-50. So it looks to me like half the time it was higher, half the time it was lower, but on average the gains exceeded the losses. That's what it looks like to me in Uber from a historical price return distribution perspective. If there are no questions on here, we could just move on to earnings, Will, unless you have like specific.
Yeah, let's take a look at earnings.
Okay.
While Deem is getting that page, if you are new to the show, please give us a thumbs up. And all you chameleons out there, there are a bunch of you on chat. A thumbs up is always helpful and nice. And make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. I haven't said that in a couple days. You'll get alerted to any new videos if you're new. Most of the chameleons on who are chatting, which there are a lot, have been here a while. So please subscribe to the YouTube channel. And a special shout out, D. It's Chameleon's birthday. Our favorite realtor, Jen Welsh from
happy
Boise,
birthday.
Idaho. It's her birthday today. So Jen,
Awesome.
happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Yeah. Hope you have a great day and a great trading day.
Yep. All right.
See if we can
Let's
find some
see
good
what we have in
ideas.
earnings. Maybe we'll see something there.
Okay. So here, these are earnings coming up in the next 2 weeks. I'm going to first use this filter to look for stocks that are coming up with earnings, but on average trade at least 5,000 option contracts per day or more. And here we have a list. So these are the list of stocks here. And we see here Groupon, that's reporting earnings today after the market close.
Is Groupon still in business?
It looks like it is. Let me
Wow.
make sure that I'm on the right.
No, I'm sure you are. I just haven't seen it or heard of it in a long time. I mean, that was a high flyer at one time, and then that's a $20 stock.
Yeah, it's $20 stock. Let me see. This is low market, $615 million market cap. So probably, dropped a lot from its initial prices, I would guess, but it's still there.
There you go.
I think my wife used it in the early stages. I'm not sure if she still does, but anyway, today after market close, it's expected to report earnings. Right now, the straddle is pricing in a move up or down in either direction of 18.5%. That compares to a 4-quarter average move of 30.5% and a 12-quarter average move of 14.5%. So 12% below that 4-quarter average, 3.9% above the 12-quarter average. The high move on that is 56% in the last 12 quarters. So it can move, right? It can have a big move. Let's take a look. SQ, that looks like it's trading a lot of average daily volume, 109,000. That's expected to report today after the market close. Right now, as of yesterday's close, the option straddle was implying a move of 7.2% in either direction. That compares to a 4-quarter average move of 6.3% and a 12-quarter actual move of 6%. So we see that's almost 1% above the 4-quarter average, 1.2% above the 12-quarter average. The high move in the last 12 quarters is 14.1%. And we do see here right now that implied move, 7.2%. That's below what usually the options are pricing in, right? On the 4-quarter average, the implied moves on average were 8.5%, and same thing on the 12-quarter. So we'll see there. WYNN, that's expected to report today after the market close. That's expecting 6.5% in either direction. That's a casino, right? Well, they're open now. Are the casinos now open? This is in Vegas, right? WYNN?
Yes, I think they are open now.
Yes. So now they're open. I guess that they're doing business now. This is the straddle, implying a 6.5% move. That compares to the last 4-quarter average move of 2.6%. On average, the last 4 quarters, 12 quarters, it compares, the average move was 4.4%. So we see here right now we're 4% above the 4-quarter average, 2.2% above the 12-quarter average. The high move on WYNN, 13.1% in the last 12 quarters. Here's a big one. That's Peloton, right? PTON.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that one a lot. That's expected today after the market close. Right now, the straddle's implying a move of 9.7% in either direction. And that's pretty close in line to the 4-quarter average of 9.8% and the 12-quarter average of 9.8%. I don't even know if they have 12 quarters yet. Right. So that's fairly new. I don't even know if they have a full 12 quarters on Peloton. What's this? Gopro. I think Gopro right now is in a low price. Yeah, $6. But that's a pretty cool. I've seen videos using GoPro. Have you ever seen like video people use them like on surfing and biking?
Yeah, well, it was supposed, the social element was what really drove the stock at the start. Like people thought they would have a platform that people would really start watching those videos on their platform, and it didn't materialize. It's a cool product, really? And people use it, but you know, most everything, it gets just pushed onto YouTube, which is free, right? So, you know, their platform, their social element never really materialized.
Right. So they don't have like a subscription-based services, basically.
I think they tried, but yeah, no, it's a camera. You know, it's like a one-time purchase item.
Right. All right. So and that's what Peloton's trying to do, create a social element to their bikes.
Well, and they have created a social element. I mean, it's a subscription model, and B, there is a social element. When you're on the bike, there are thousands of other people, you know, in the room with you, and you can chat while you're doing it. So it does have a social element.
All right. And they have also a subscription. That's, you have to pay for that, right?
Yes. It's a monthly subscription.
Right.
It's a
right. So
it's a big chunk to purchase, which they now finance, I think. And it's then a monthly subscription, which is just about the cost of a membership. It's not like a big savings. A membership to a health club is what I'm saying.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Well, see, we see that's been doing pretty well. And we went over this one. Let's see a couple big ones. I think somebody mentioned SPCE that they were looking into that. So that's coming out with earnings also today after the market close. And that one is the Virgin Atlantic's, right? They're into sending things into space.
It's actually not as much sending things into the space, because they're starting another company, I think, that does that. If you're investing in SPCE, that is, I think, strictly space tourism. They're going to take people up into, you know, just to the part of the atmosphere where you can start floating and then bring you back down. You know, it's not setting up satellites. That is something else they're working on in another entity. Just an FYI.
Right. So, well, it's pretty interesting, because you think, you know, is it going to work? Are people going to pay? And a lot of times you're surprised, right, how things work out. And but let's just take a look at what's going on here prior to earnings. As of yesterday, that straddle was implying a move of 8.9%. I don't think they have a full 12 quarters yet, but in the last 4 quarters, the average move was 11.1%, so we're 2.2% below that. I think we're seeing also 11.1% in the last 12 quarters, but not sure if we have a full 12 quarters in there. But the high move on that, 15.5%. Let me see if I see any other big ones here today after market. So Uber, we talked about. Roku. Here's another one. Roku expected today after market close. So that's the implied move is 10% in either direction. That compares to a 4-quarter average move of 9.3%. So we're close to that, a little bit above 0.7%, and a 12-quarter average move of 19.1%. So we're we could see we're 9.1% below that 12-quarter average. And here, big move, biggest move in the last 12 quarters, 54.9%. So that's, it could move, right? It could be a very volatile stock. Let me take a look at that then, Roku. So here we go. This is Roku here, and we see that this is what the straddle predicted. These bars here, up or down, these are the percentage moves that the option straddles predicted. The bars in the red, that's the actual move. So the one I'm hovering over right now, on August 5th, after the market closed, the stock reported earnings. It was down 7%. That compares to the implied move. The straddle is implying a move of 10.1% in either direction. So we see these green ones. That's where it actually was up on the day after reporting earnings. So the one I'm hovering over now, May 8th, after the market closed, the actual move was 28.1%. Stock was up 28.1% after reporting earnings. That compared to what the options implied, 12.9% in either direction. So that stock blew right through where the straddle was priced at. And here's that big move right here. November 8th, 2017, after the market closed, it reported earnings up almost 55%. That compares to the straddle that was pricing in a 15.6% move. So you can see here, very choppy. When it blows through, you know, it could really blow through here. And a lot of times it was to the upside, right? I would say here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times it blew through to the upside. 1, 2, about 2 times to the downside. What's that, Will?
We had a question from Rajesh. He was asking about implied moves. He just wants a description on how they're calculated. Are they calculated on a daily basis?
So the implied moves are basically taken from the options prices. So if you're buying a straddle, right, let's just take a look. So here's November 6th, right? The earnings are today after the market closed. So the stock, let's say it closed at 215, right? If you're buying $11 call, the call at 215 for $11.15, you're buying the put $10.85. Sorry. So here you made I'm going to load that. So you paid $22, right, for this straddle. That means that this stock, the fair value would be right $22. So buyers of this think it's going to go above 20. It's going to move more than $22 away. Sellers of this think it's going to move less than $22 away. So that's the implied move, $22. If we compare that, you know, to this price, approximately, what is that, like a little bit over 10%, right, from here. So it has to move more than 10% for you, which is right. It has to move $22 away from 215.68. Does that make sense to him?
Yep.
That's the implied move.
While you're there, we're getting a question from Mike. He's asking how often are pre-market prices updated? Is that on a 15-minute delay?
Yeah, so
It's constantly rolling.
Yeah, so these pre-market price, and you have the timestamp right there. So you could just take a look when the last update was.
I think he's asking about the pre-market stock prices.
Yeah, I'm on the pre-market stock.
All right,
price.
sorry.
So this is the timestamp of them, right? 9/12. So they're being updated. The prices themselves, market data, is on a 15-minute delay, right? I think that as they're coming in, there's like a timer because all these statistics need to get calculated as prices are getting in. So you're not calculating on every tick because you're getting millions of ticks a second. So there's a timer that just aggregates and says how much new volume, how much, you know, I don't know, maybe, I'm not sure in the pre-market might be like once every minute or two. So when you refresh it, you know, you'll get a new time stamp. So here's 9:13, I just refreshed. Is that helpful?
Yeah, that's perfect. All right.
Okay.
We're butting against the end of the show, D. Awesome job. Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining. There was something that Pavel brought up, and I'll bring it up to support. If you ever see anything that looks super odd, please just email us, send us a screenshot, support@MarketChameleon.com. I know Dima works on that stuff all the time. So we try to get to any issues you may see. Dima, any last words for the chameleons?
No, thanks everyone for joining us. Have a great trading day. Hope to see you guys tomorrow. Thank you for all the questions, all the comments and support.
Awesome
have a great
job,
day.
D. Everyone have a safe trading day. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow's show. It's